Background for our thinking together this morning. I would like to read two things. One, the two lines from the words of Jesus, and the other, 4 or 8 or 9 lines from a contemporary poem. The eye is the lamp of the body, so if your eye is generous, the whole of your body will be illumined. But if your eye is selfish, the whole of your body will be darkened. And if your very light turns dark, then what a darkness it is. The words of Jesus. And now the contemporary poem. They asked me what ailed her and why her brightness faded, why her singing thoughts became dull thoughts and jaded. And I remembered long ago standing in the long grass and listening to our gardener tell of things that pass. He spoke of 2 young apple trees that shriveled up one spring. They died, he said, from too much blossoming. Now it would be a very interesting exercise for you to work out in your own way the connection between the two things. There is a connection, but if I told you, then you wouldn't remember. But if you work it out, then you would be sure that is what I had in mind. The light that is dark. If the light that is in you be darkness, what a darkness it is. I would like to think just a little about that with you. Light is energy. Oh, you pardon me for interrupting myself. There's some very important thing that I forgot to say. Several of you asked me last Sunday if we might have a communion service. And those of you who are interested, the communion service will be Thursday evening at 7:30. Thursday evening in this room at 7:30. I'm sorry I forgot to say it. Thursday at 7:30. Those persons who are interested. Ordinarily, we have communion in our church once a year, and that is the first Sunday in October. Any other time, if there are persons in the congregation who so desire it. Those of you who spoke to me about it last Sunday will be informed. Any other persons who are interested are, of course, welcome to come. It will be a simple service without music, just a simple communion fellowship. Now, every person, I think, is born with a fundamental sense of value, of values. We've talked together about that many times. That there is a value sense that seems to be a part of the equipment of personality. That is not to say, of course, that every person has a native definition of right and wrong, a definition of right and wrong that is unalterable, that remains fixed. But it is to say that there is in every human spirit, I believe, what seems to me to be a sense of of values, a valuational consciousness, to pick up a phrase that was used many years ago. Now, it's like a container, a value container. Now, what goes into that value container defines the meaning of right and wrong for you. That which is given is a sense of value. The definition, however, is contingent upon training, environment, background, all sorts of exposures. So the light is the sense of value that's given. And that light is a light that lighteth every man that cometh into the world. I do not think there is any person who is devoid of this sense of value. Now, the content of the sense of value may put all of the strength and the vitality of this indigenous sense of value, this indigenous quality of personality. The content of the value sense, may be something that is in the light of experience, in the light of ends towards which life seems to be moving. This value content may be something that is diabolical, something that is essentially evil, negative, destructive, nihilistic. But if the resources, and please understand this, if the resources of one's sense of value are put at the disposal of a value content that is evil, then one's light becomes darkness. Therefore, it is very important constantly to refine, to re-examine, to test, to check the content of one's sense of value. Because it is quite possible that I might put at the disposal of the content of my sense of value all of the vitality of a sense of value, and that content be negative, evil. Now think about that. As you look back on your own life, do you put the weight of your sense of values on the side of a content, a meaning, which is destructive? Now let's pursue that just one other step. The next step in that whole process is that I might put a false label on my sense of values. put a false label on it. And I might do it quite deliberately. Or I might do it out of stupidity or ignorance. I might deliberately call a good thing bad. Because it serves some interest of mine to put the wrong label on it. And if I put the wrong label on it as a deliberate act of judgment, and let that label remain over a time interval of sufficient duration, then there will come a time when it is very difficult, if at all possible, for me to recognize the fact that there is a difference between the label and the thing itself. If I call a good thing bad because it suits my convenience, because it's easier for me, it gets me out of jams, that's why lying is such a terrible thing on the human spirit. Because the thing that happens to a liar is that he is an authentic liar when he knows that he's lying. You know, he's a genuine liar then. Now, there are bogus liars who lie because they don't know much about what they're saying. You know, it's sort of freewheeling. But they do not create the moral problem. Just a little education and a little enlightenment will help them. But the authentic liar is one who, in the act of lying, is aware that he's lying. And that is a very invidious thing, because it paralyzes one's nerve center of moral assent, with the result that inevitably the personality moves towards a situation or a predicament which renders him immune to moral and ethical discrimination. And that's the madness that there is in this. And yet the dilemma is, the paradox is that if a person lies with full awareness of what he's doing, then he acts as a responsible human being. That's the other side of that. Now, if I deliberately call a bad thing good, or a good thing bad, I make to the offering of that kind of habit the most precious thing I have as a human being, and that is an ethical awareness of meanings, of values. That's why Jesus, he was quite tremendous. When someone when his family said to the people who were criticizing him, don't pay too much attention to him, he's a little off. No, not crazy, but just a little off. In other words, he's not responsible. So don't be too hard on him. Don't persecute him for his words because he's acting as an irresponsible agent. But certain other people said, he has sense all right. There's nothing wrong with him. But he's full of the devil. And it is by the power of the devil that he's casting out devils. And Jesus overheard the conversation, and he made a very interesting reply to these men. He said, you do not talk as men who have good sense. If you say that I'm casting out devils by the power of the devil, that's stupid. A house divided against itself cannot stand. Why would the devil give me power to cast him out? That isn't sense. And you know it isn't. Now I'll tell you, if you keep on saying that I'm casting out devils by the power of the devil, and you know that it is not true, you will commit the unpardonable sin. And what is it? If deep within himself, deep within the core of a man's valuational consciousness and ethical awareness, he calls a good thing bad, there will come a time when he can't tell the difference. And the light that is in him becomes darkness. And if the light becomes darkness, what a darkness! What a darkness! Now, let's take it another step. That is, it is because of the anatomy of power. I don't quite know how to get at what I see now, so I hope you'll be patient with me. Power seems always to turn light into darkness. Power. Now, I don't know what there is about power that works that way. Power seems to have its own etiquette, its own morality, its own code. It seems to be independent of agents. But that may not be true. I don't know. If certain kinds of power no, that isn't right. Well, let's talk about it analogously. Maybe the inside will break. Here's a man who's a reformer. That is, he becomes disturbed because the city has dirty politics. Let's take an illustration like that. It's a very good one and impersonal. He wants to clean up the city, so there are a lot of other people of goodwill who want to clean up the city, and they get together. And they select a slate. And this slate organizes itself and it mobilizes all the goodwill in the community and all the people who love the community and who believe in the democracy and so forth and so on. And there's a landslide. And this reform slate comes into power. Now, that's a very interesting thing to happen. Now, as soon as the reformed mayor becomes the mayor, not the reformed mayor, the reform mayor becomes the mayor. The moment he becomes the mayor, he becomes the mayor. And that means that all of the elements that belong to mayorness, all of the power that's there inherent in the evolution of the position, all of that becomes his involvement. So that he discovers that it is one thing to think in terms of cleaning out graft and doing all these other things when he is without power. But it's another thing when he becomes the recipient of power and authority. For power somehow seems to rob the possessor of power of a sense of personal and social responsibility for the power. How can power, which is in itself without moral quality, how can power be operative in any situation in a manner that gives to the wielder of power an increasingly acute sense of responsibility to those on whom the power operates? That's it. Now, one of the effects of it is it gives you a sense of omniscience. You think you know everything. And omniscience, knowledge, the knowledge experience is the way by which the mind is illumined. It's light. But if the knowledge that illumines the mind and the spirit becomes a weapon of power in the hands of individuals who in the exercise of that power are stripped of moral responsibility, then the light becomes darkness. That's why I think Jesus, again, insisted always upon humility, because perhaps the only antidote for humility, for power that puts out the lights in the form of knowledge or controls or whatever, is humility. And humility is never possible when a man compares his life, his achievements, with somebody else's life and somebody else's achievements. For you see, we're very clever. If we want to compare our lives and our achievements with somebody else, we always select the right kind of person. You know? Now, we compare ourselves with X because we know that anybody who knows anything and looks at those two lives will know that mine is superior, you see. But what we are required to do is, under the aegis of humility as the antidote to all of the overtones of power which turn light into darkness, what we are obligated to do is to measure our lives, our work, the expression of our lives by the thing that we see when we are most honest, when we are most ourselves. We measure the achievement by the dream that stirred our hearts, not by the way in which the achievement compares with some other achievement. But when I look at that which I have done and lift my weary eyes to behold once again the light that sent me on my way, I must hang my head in shame that I have done so little with so great a vision. Now, if that is your feeling, my friends, then you will never be afflicted by a dark house having your light turned into darkness in that way. Now, there's one other thing I want to say about this. I want to come back to knowledge again. There's something about the mind. Something about the mind that seems to, about thinking, about the ability to think, that it seems to build a wall between us and other people. I guess that knowledge, yes, I think that's right. Knowledge, again and again, seems to make us regard ourselves as guest members of the human race, while all the other people are regular members. So that the things that apply to these regular members don't apply to you because you're a guest. That's what knowledge does. That's what knowledge tends to do. That's better. I've told you many times about this wonderful friend of mine who gave me a thorough physical examination just before I came out to California 9 years ago. And he was the dean of a certain medical school. And he examined me carefully, and I ran all these tests and, the things that you have to do to get a complete physical. And when everything was over, he gave me a ring and asked me to come down to his office to see him. And he sat behind his desk with his manila folder with all this thing in code, I suppose, but he would read it and turn pages and and look at me and And finally he closed this manila folder and he said, "Well, Doc, you're in pretty good shape. Pretty good shape. Man of your years." Then he said, "You've just one little bit of caution, you know, you live a sedentary life and so forth, and you'll have to watch your weight very carefully. Because if you don't," and then he was off about my heart and other vital organs and blood vessels. It was a very amazing performance. And then even gave me a mimeograph diet chart, you know. Simple. Well, it was all right until I looked at him. Now he was a man who was about 5 feet 4 inches maybe, and he weighed about 230 pounds. Big. And I chuckled, you know, as I looked at him, but I've never forgotten it. It's been one of the most searching lessons that I've ever learned. For you see, he thought that his body knew that he was a doctor. Do you see what I mean? That his knowledge of anatomy and all these other things somehow made him a guest member of the human race. But all the people who didn't have that knowledge, if they took in too much caloric units, they would store it up in this fat and so forth. But he was a doctor. Now that's the subtle thing that knowledge does. Do you see what I mean? And it doesn't have to be the elaborate knowledge of a doctor. It may be the knowledge of your own righteousness. You may feel that because you are growing in the prayer life, that little by little, by laborious steps, by painful processes, you are resting from the stubborn and recalcitrant stuff of your living. A quality of being and insight that gives you increasing, that lifts, that gives you an immunity from involvement in all of the struggles and the limitations, the rising and falling, the getting up and the falling down, that is a part of the common experience of ordinary, struggling human beings who have not even learned quite how to say, "Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name," who can only in their great extremities say, "Lord, have mercy on me." Even the bright white light that illumines the mind and spirit like the Shekinah, the uncreated light around the throne of God, that can get into our house and become darkness if it does not re-relate us at a deeper level to all the muted misery of the human race. Now, what about your light? What about it? Is your light turning to darkness? Is it? Do you think that you have prerogatives by virtue of any advantage of yours that are denied the rest of the people? It is a perilous thing, my friends. Perilous for us as individuals, perilous for us in Fellowship Church, perilous for us. Perilous for us Americans. Now your light will remain light if you see clearly that in the presence of God, and I'm through now, if you see clearly that in the presence of God, no pretensions of yours can stand up. That in his presence, whether it be in the church, in the home, in the street, on the job, that wherever suddenly or steadily you become aware that you are faced with the scrutiny of God, the fact that you're male or female, the fact that you are Christian or a Hindu, the fact that you are a Buddhist or a Parsi, the fact that you are rich or poor, ignorant or educated, rational or irrational, the fact that you are anything other than a naked human spirit is an irrelevant fact in that moment. It is there that we all stripped to whatever there is in us that is literal and irreducible. in his presence. We need lay no claim to anything. It is beside the point to say that we have been good or bad. Let us practice every day the cultivation of the moment. When for a twinkling of an eye we stand stripped without pretensions of any sort in the presence of God. And if that happens to us, not only will it be true that we need have no fear, but whatever betides us, we shall be able to stand anything that life can do to us. Anything. Because we live under the aegis and in the spirit of one who walks day by day, stripped there isn't anything that can be done to you by anything, whatever it is. And that is my prayer for you and for me. And it's the only kind of thing that makes sense in a mad world. If the light that is in you be darkness, if the light that is in you be darkness, if the light that is in you be dark,